Okay, let's go ahead and get this started. So welcome to the second workshop in the Green at Home series presented by Acterra, Action for a Healthy Planet. Today we will be covering heat pump water heaters, steps to electrify the home. If you would like to, after this presentation, if you would like to go ahead and give our website a brief overlook for some more information regarding Green at Home programming we cover, or other information regarding heat pump water heaters, induction stovetops, solar rooftop, etc., go ahead and give our website a quick click around at www.acterra.org/heatpump. Feel free to also check us out on social medias. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. All of our handles are at the bottom. My name is Brianna Duarte. I am the facilitator for this presentation, but today we will be welcoming guest speaker Sudhanshu Jain. He is an Acterra board member, and he's also a City of Santa Clara council member. He's an expert on heat pump water heaters, and we are very grateful to have his presence during this workshop. At the end of the presentation, we will welcome guest speaker Jessica Chancellor. She is a PG&E representative. She will be covering PG&E's new time of use rates plans and how just more information, questions regarding them. I know a lot of folks have questions about TFU. It's a hot topic right now. So we're grateful to welcome a PG&E representative as knowledgeable as her regarding the time of use rate plans. And so with that, I will go ahead and let Suds take the floor. Thank you, Suds.
Okay, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert at heat pump water heaters, but I did install one in my own house. I did the plumbing and the electrical, so I had to deal with all of the issues of that. And then, of course, with reach codes and everything, I've been promoting heat pumps throughout the Bay Area. So anyway, what I'd like to show here is the residential energy use. So we have the United States, we have the Pacific area, and then we have California alone. And what you see is this pink is space heating. So in the rest of the US, it's colder than California, so they have more space heating. Okay. In California, we have less space heating, but we have proportionally more water heating. So 25% of our energy in our homes is consumed by water heating. And that's where we can attack this wedge with heat pump water heaters. Most of those water heaters are gas, natural gas, and we know that natural gas is a powerful greenhouse gas. In the 20-year time frame, it's over 80 times more potent than CO2. And there's a lot of leakage in our pipelines and the extraction technology that allows methane to escape the atmosphere. So there's this movement to ban natural gas in new buildings. So there's a great alternative to water heaters, and I'll show you water heaters next here. This is a heat pump water heater. It's got vents on the side for air to come in that gets cooled and the air to go out. This is your typical gas tank water heater. And then they have electric resistance water heaters. This just has a coil of wire inside that gets heated up by electricity. So these are 95% efficient. But if you're getting your electricity from burning methane, then it's only 50% efficient if you take the actual heat of the gas. Compared to that, if you just, the gas water heater burns natural gas directly, so that's 67 to 73% efficient at extracting the heat from burning gas. Now, miraculously, the heat pump water heaters are 200 to 400 times efficient of converting electricity to heat. So that seems like thermodynamically impossible, but I'll explain why it's not. And if you take the efficiency of burning methane to create electricity, they end up being 100 to 200% efficient. So they're still far more efficient if you start from natural gas as your source. But of course, in California, most of our power grid is being decarbonized very quickly. So that electricity will be coming from wind and solar and not from methane. So in that case, we're using the 200 to 400% efficiency numbers. So now there's another technology for heating water, which are these tankless water heaters, which I believe should just be banned outright in California. And what these are is these don't have a tank, and but they have a big gas line coming into them, and they burn gas very, very quickly to heat the water as it passes through these. Okay. Um, the standby losses of the tank. So when you have the tank, there's hot water just sitting in there, and that's radiating heat to the outside environment. And so those standby losses are 15 to 20%. So 15 to 20% of your energy is just consumed by the tanks. So since there's no tank storing the heat, these tankless water heaters were thought to be a great option. And what they do is they just heat as needed. The beauty is you never run out of hot water because it heats on demand. It heats as you need it. Um, the the problem is they burn methane. They turn on and off every time you run the water. And in that turning on and off, there's a little bit of methane that gets released when they turn on and off. And then they can be as efficient as 95% efficient at converting the heat to the energy. But that's for this very fairly expensive Japanese version. A lot of the tankless water heaters can be down to 67% efficient. So the range varies quite a bit. That's a gas version of this. The electric versions do the same thing. They have a coil of water. The water comes in, gets heated by the coil of water, and it gets exits for your showers and your dishwashers and so on. The problem with these is that a 12 kilowatt electric tankless water heater runs on 240 volts at 50 amps. A lot of people only have a 100 amp service coming into their house. So this is consuming half of the energy for your house. And they only do 1.9 gallons per minute. So two people couldn't comfortably take a shower at the same time with these. Whereas at 9 gallons per minute, 3 or 4 people can take a shower at the same time. So the gas is an option for the tankless. The electric tanklesses are not sold very often because you might need a service panel upgrade, and you don't get enough heat for multiple uses in the house. So, but the these are only 95% efficient at the best, whereas we know that the heat pump water heater can be 100 to 200% efficient when you look for the methane, but 2 to 400% efficient. So how do they work? So the magic is that they're actually taking heat out of the air. So um, you're running electricity to run the compressor, and it captures all that heat, but it also takes heat out of the air. So they're basically a big air conditioner or the refrigerator in your house. Your refrigerator takes the air inside your refrigerator and cools it and returns that cold air so it sucks air out of the inside of your refrigerator, cools it, and returns colder air to the inside of your refrigerator. But that heat that's extracted gets exited to the outside. And so here, if we look at a heat pump, what happens is you have, this is one that actually is an air conditioner that cools your house. So you have indoor air coming in, it goes through this cold coil, and then the cold air goes into your house. So what it does is it takes this refrigerant, and when a liquid evaporates, it cools, or when it expands, it cools. And when you compress a gas, it heats up. So what you do is you take that compressor, you compress this refrigerant, it heats up, and you take outside air and you run it by this heat exchanger, take the heat out of it. So this is cooler than what came in. And then when it goes through an expansion valve, it gets very cold. and then that goes through a heat exchanger and then cools your house. You could run this the reverse, where this is your inside air. And if you blow that in and you take this air and you release that into your house, you heat your house or you heat your water by flipping this around. So heat pumps do both duties. They're they give you heat and they give you air conditioning based on flipping them around. And that's how most heat pumps work for space heating and cooling. So I hope that's clear. We can cover that more thoroughly later. Um, so uh, this is what's inside these. They have a tank, and then they have a compressor at the top. They take the air from the house, goes in here, and it runs by this evaporator coil, gets colder, and there's actually cold air. You're refrigerating the space that you're in. So I use this in my house to cool the space. I get free air conditioning in the summertime from my heat pump water heater. So you have a tank here, and you take this compressed hot liquid, it goes into this coil that exchanges the heat with the water, and that's the condenser. And then when it comes back, it goes through an expansion valve that then cools this this uh, heat exchanger. So this is actually the one that I have installed in my house. And the room air comes in the top and cold air comes out this side. So what I have is I have electrical 240 volts, goes to a AC disconnect panel, which is required by law. And then that goes into the water heater. The thing is that when you take air from the room and you cool it, it condenses. So you actually get moisture condensing on the outside of this. So you actually have water that's condensed on there, and that goes into this condensate pump, and that gets pumped to a drain that I have in my house. So that's the difference when you install these from a standard gas water heater. You have to deal with the condensate, you have to deal with the electric coming in. Okay, so this is my heat pump water heater. As you can see, it has a efficiency of 375 to 400%. Okay, and the ambient temperature that it'll work at is 37 degrees to 145 degrees. So a lot of people put these in their garages, and the garage air comes in. Now, if it's colder than 37 degrees, there's actually a electric resistance in here, and it'll just heat the water like an old electric uh, water heater. So I hope everyone's getting this. Um, so let's look at the efficiencies of the various water heaters. This is gas water heaters. You have your standard cheap water heater, then you can get higher efficiency ones, and you can get a high performance one, okay? And then you have the tankless ones. So these are all tank water heaters. And then what they do is they look at payback periods, your costs. So of course, the more efficient ones get more expensive. Okay, the tankless ones are quite a bit more expensive. And they have gas condensing ones, which are expensive, but they're more efficient. And then you have payback periods. So in 2.5 years, we cover the cost of the higher efficiency uh, tanked gas water heater. And then in 8 years, you cover the cost of the high performance, using the high performance one. So you can see that when you buy these, you get different efficiencies. The life expectancy of the tanked ones is about 13 years. The tankless, it's 20 years because the tanks rust. Anyone who's had these, you know that the tanks rust. So that's for the gas water heaters. You guys, you guys can see my cursors, right, Brianna? You can see the
Yes, we
cursor?
see it.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, okay. So then if you look at electric water heating, you, a standard resistance water heater is 90% efficient. You can get a higher performance one, which is 95% efficient. So you can see payback periods of those. But the tankless ones are, again, have pretty long payback periods compared to the tanked ones, because your efficiency is not going up that much. The electric resistance is already pretty efficient. But then when you go to the heat pump water heaters, it's like I said, 200 to 400% efficient. The payback period is 3 years, not counting all the rebates that I'm going to talk about. So now if you compare a high performance gas tanked water heater, it costs you $935 to buy, and the annual cost of operation is $334 per year, whereas a heat pump water heater will cost you $1,500. But the annual cost of operation is $228, so it pays back in 5.3 years, which, you know, not considering the social cost of carbon and the cost to the environment, that's a pretty good payback as well.
Moving around heat pump water heaters.
Okay. So when you replace your gas water heater with a heat pump water, you really kind of need to plan ahead. I'm going to share a little story of my water heater. I had noticed that my water heater was getting old. It was probably around 13 years old. And so I said, oh, this is a great time for me to get a heat pump water heater. So you can't just walk into Home Depot and buy these, not yet. And so I had to order it online, and it took about 3 weeks to get here. So meanwhile, I was downstairs running the electrical and doing all the plumbing for it and everything. And as I was doing that, one day I ran downstairs to continue some electrical work that I was doing, and I stepped in a half an inch of water. So in the time that I'd ordered the water heater till the time it arrived, my tank leaked in my gas water heater. So it was fortuitous. So we had about a week of showers at the YMCA and so on. But at least, you know, I had planned ahead. The problem is that when people's gas water heaters leak, they're in a hurry. And the easiest thing to do is just replace the gas water heater with like for like. And you know, you don't have time to run the electricity. You need 2 contractors, you need a plumber and an electrician to do that. So, you know, I strongly recommend that if your water heater is over 10 years old, you should just hire an electrician and start getting the electrical work done in advance. And then it'll be easy to do the plumbing later with the plumber when your water heater goes out. And if it's really at about 13 years, just go ahead and replace it, because you might not have that water damage in your basement of a leaking water heater. So the thing is that you need to have 30 amps at 220 volts. So you need to put a breaker in your box. So some people may need a service panel upgrade, which can be expensive, a couple $1,000s. It generates cold air. So if you're putting it in a place where you don't want the cold air, you have to vent it to the outside. If you do keep it in a room, the room has to be at least 7 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet to create enough heat. Otherwise, the room will cool down so much that the heat pump won't be able to extract heat from that air. So what they say is that you need a room of a certain size or duct it to the outside. If you're putting in the garage, that's pretty much the perfect place. That's where most people have their heat pump water heaters. You'll need to run that condensate line, like I said, because it condenses moisture out of the ambient air. And then there's an air filter that keeps the coils clean. So you have to just clean that air filter, something that you never had to do with your gas water heater. And then it's slightly louder than a gas water heater. So the Rheem that I have is the quietest heat pump. It's about 49 dB and it has a low hum. 50 dB is equivalent to moderate rainfall or a conversation at home. So some people think that that's still even too loud. So the garage is a great place for these water heaters. Okay, so let's talk about California's electrical grid. We have this thing called a duct curve. So it used to be, before we had a lot of solar in the state, energy use from power plants peaked in the middle of the day because everyone turned on their air conditioners. And so in 2002, the requirement from power plants was increased in the middle of the day. And as we started installing more solar, solar was providing that. We didn't have to turn on all those power plants. And so now what we have is actually in the middle of the day is when we have the least demand of electricity from our power plants. But then as the sun goes down, that we're not getting solar and people go home to their hot homes from work, they turn on their air conditioners, you get a huge demand from the grid. And that's this big ramp where a lot of power plants have to turn on just for a few hours. And that's very expensive to run those peaker plants. And so it's this, and you can see this looks like a duck. So we call this the duck curve. And it's this neck of the duck, which is presenting a huge problem to California. And later PG&E will be talking about time of use. And it's this period that they want to cover. This is the period that they want you to stop using energy, because that's when we have to turn on all these dirty peaker plants. So we're trying to smooth that out. I bring this up because what I do with my heat pump water heater is I actually program it so that it gets a little bit hotter. It's set to 120 degrees, but I set it to 125 degrees in the middle of the day. And that allows me to ride out this time. So no matter what I'm using in the house, I won't have to turn on my water heater, my heat pump to create demand during this time. And PG&E will be talking about how the rates will be higher if you use energy in this period, because they want to prevent this big ramp. So that's the problem. Now we could put battery storage in, and we are putting battery storage. Almost every new solar plant and wind plant is now starting to come with battery storage, which will then smooth this out. So what'll happen is the solar will be charging the batteries at this time, and then the batteries will be releasing their energy at this time. So, and you can look at how that affects the electricity rates, the prices of our electricity. So if you look back in 2015, electricity prices were more or less, they varied a little bit, but they're flatter. But now as we add more solar, you get more peakiness. This is the belly of the duck. And so what we see is in the middle of the day, when all the air conditioners are running, electricity prices are actually at their lowest. And then as the neck goes up, electricity prices go from $15 a megawatt hour to $59 per megawatt hour. So that's a 390% increase in electricity prices from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that's what we're trying to smooth out with demand shifting. You try to run your air conditioners and cool your house in the middle of the day so that when you come home at night, then it's actually already cool at day, and you turn your heat pump water heaters on and overheat your water a little bit. So this is what we're trying to do. The Department of Energy is and a bunch of municipalities are doing this replace on burnout, and they're looking at requirements to say if your water heater, your gas water heater burns out, you must replace it with a heat pump water heater. And that's why you need to plan ahead, because when that water heater fails, you may not be able to get an electrician, or you may not be able to get a plumber right away. So if you know it's getting at about 13 years, just replace it anyway. You won't have the liability of water damage and so on. That applies more so if your water heater is inside your conditioned space of your house. So 2.5 million water heaters will fail this year. And so if you replace it, and you can actually go look on your water heater, there's a sticker on there, and you can look up that serial number, and it'll tell you how old your water heater is. And of course, if you, not everyone gets a permit for their water heater. I believe about 1/3 of the people get permits, but your permit will also tell you when your water heater was last replaced. So now there's a problem because now we're doing all these REACH codes and heat pump water heaters are getting kind of popular, but the manufacturers haven't really increased their production. So now I hear that currently heat pump water heaters are on back order and there's a 3-week wait. The other thing is if your water heater is, a friend of mine was going to replace his water heater and he called a contractor, and you can buy the Ream water heater at Home Depot for about $1,300 or $1,400, but he was being charged $3,000 by the contractor. So that was just kind of the contractor's profit on the water heater. So you could just order the water heater yourself from Home Depot, have it delivered, and then hire a contractor to just install it for you. And you would save possibly $1,500. And you just pay that person for their labor. There is one company that I heard of, Emerald ECO. It's a local installer that will actually give you a temporary gas water heater while they're waiting for the heat pump water heater to come on order. But you'll have to replace the water heater twice, so there's extra labor costs. And again, as I mentioned, that 220 volt service, you have to run extra electricity to where your water heater location is, but you have 110 outlets all over your house. So there are actually some water heater manufacturers that are looking at 110 volt heat pump water heaters. Now they will heat the water much more slowly than the 240. So you might want to order a bigger tank so that you don't run out of water. But over the course of a whole day, they will actually provide enough heat to heat your water. But then you can just plug it into an outlet and use just a regular breaker for that. So we're trying to get the manufacturer to do that. The downside of that, they won't have the electric resistance element. So if it gets lower than 37 degrees, there are heat pumps that work down to 5 degrees for space heating, but I don't know if there are any for heat pump for water heating. So, okay. So that's, I'm almost done. I'm just going to talk about some rebates now. It turns out that the heat pump water heaters are more expensive than gas water heaters, but the electric companies like Peninsula Clean Energy, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, they used to only give you rebates if you took an electric resistance water heater, the old inefficient electrics, and convert to a heat pump water heater. That's what my electric utility was doing. It's only if you converted electric to electric. But now they just started offering conversions from gas to electric. Even though the electric water heaters, heat pumps are more expensive, they realize that the climate change impacts of the methane outweigh the extra costs. So now they're giving you rebates. So different power companies are giving you up to $2,500 rebates, $1,000 rebates. San Jose has one of the most generous. They will actually give you up to $6,000 if you have to do a panel upgrade. Like I said, these require 30 amps at 240 volts. If you only have a 100 amp service panel, may not be enough. So, so you can get $4,500 for a panel upgrade and then $2,000 without a panel upgrade. So these heat pumps are almost free. I mean, if you install it yourself, it is free. If you get a contractor to do it, it's pretty much cheaper than replacing with a gas water heater. So Palo Alto has a program. All Silicon Valley Clean Energy, which is Sunnyvale and Mountain View, they have this Future Fit program. So, so you can go to Bayren and you can look at all the rebates. And then there's contractors. Sometimes it's hard to find a contractor that knows how to do heat pump water heaters. Again, you have the issue of needing two trades. You need to have an electrician and a plumber. A lot of water heater people only know how to do the plumbing side of it. So, but we do have a list of a number of contractors that have done heat pump water heaters. So you can take a look at the list on the Acterra website. There's a number of them. We don't have personal experience with these. These are just contractors that are listed on the Bayren side. So Acterra doesn't recommend one over the other. So, so anyway, just to conclude, the barriers to adoption are sometimes the noise. It's the, getting a contractor to do it. What do you do with the cold air? Do you have a place to duct out the cold air? Or can you do it in your garage? And then they are a little bit slower at heating the water compared to a gas water heater. But I've had mine for 3 years and have had no problems with not having enough hot water. So there is a little bit of care for any water heater. You're technically supposed to drain the sediment. There's a drain valve at the bottom of your water heater. So for both gas tanks and heat pump water heaters, you should drain that sediment every year. I never did. There's an anode which prevents corrosion. You should check that every 3 years and see whether it can be replaced. That'll make your water heater last longer. And pretty much no one ever checks their anodes. And then again, the only extra thing for the heat pump water heater is you have to clean the air filter, and then you have to make sure your condensate pump is working. So just plan ahead, understand the locations that you can put in, hire a qualified professional. Just to save energy, we should install low flow water faucets and showers. Keep your water heater thermostat to 120 degrees. Some people had them at scalding temperatures like 130, 135. That increases those standby losses. And then just make sure you get an Energy Star heat pump water heater. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna.
Thank you so much, Suds, for sharing all that you know about heat pump water heaters. We had some excellent questions in the chat. So after our time with PG&E representative Jessica, we will go ahead and revisit those questions. Next slide, please.
Do you want to take control, or you want me to?
No,
stop share?
Jessica's going to share.
She's going to share. So you want me to just advance now, right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Jessica. So if you will go ahead and take the floor, it is.
I'm going to stop share then, right?
Yes.
Okay, you should be able to see the screen. Can you confirm?
Yes, we see it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you all so much for having me on the call today. I have some brief information that I'm going to share with you all in regards to rate options as well as program awareness. And okay, so a couple things that I wanted to come on the call with you all today is to really make sure some things hit home for all of you. One is that we want to make sure that you're finding the best rate plan that's right for you and your household. We have ways to help you do that. We also have communication preferences to ensure that you can receive your bills and communication in the languages that you would prefer. And then we have programs that can help to assist you with keeping your bills lower that you may be eligible for as well. So I came on the call just to make sure that you're all aware of that. And then there's some brief information I can share with you if there's some time about the time of use transition. But I appreciate Suds had kind of explained that really we are trying to get customers to conserve during those later peak hours of that 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. window to ensure that we can meet demand on the grid. And the time of use transition rate plan, as well as the other time of use plans that we have, help customers do just that. So let's talk a little bit more about rate plans. We do have time of use rate plans, a couple of them, that may work for you, as well as help to ensure that customers are using energy when renewable resources are most plentiful on the grid, which is during like the daytime hours. And time of use may not be right for everyone, but what you'll notice is that with a time of use rate plan, a customer does have more control over how they use their energy, as well as how that impacts their bill. Because if you can shift your energy or conserve on your energy usage outside of the peak times, you are getting the lowest rate available. So that does help to incentivize customers. If you can use energy in the 19 other hours of the day for those higher energy users, such as like a dishwasher or maybe doing laundry, running your pool pump, things of that nature outside of the 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. window, you may be able to save on a time of use rate plan. And then we have a tiered rate plan. And for a tiered rate plan, what that means is that the more you use, the more you pay. You do get charged a higher rate when you start getting into the higher usage amounts, but there is flexibility in when you use your energy in terms of you're not charged a peak price if you're using energy during peak times. And then we have electric vehicle rates and battery storage rates. So if you find yourself in one of those positions where you have an electric vehicle or maybe you have battery storage, one of these rate plans may be best for you. A common misconception with time of use rate plans is that you can't use energy at all during peak times. That is far from the truth. Nobody expects you to sit candlelight and read a book during peak hours. You're going to be cooking dinner. You're going to be watching TV. You're going to be doing things with your family during 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's understood. Customers can still save, though, if you can shift some of those higher energy users outside of the peak window. So just keep that in mind. Now, we know also that rate plans are not a one-size-fits-all approach, and the best thing for you to do is to go online to pge.com/rate choices, and there we have a rate analysis tool that takes out all the guesswork for you. You don't have to be a rates expert in order to understand what is the best rate for you and your household based on how you've already been using your energy. And then if you can make some changes, you may be able to save beyond what is shared with you as an estimate on your annual bills. So simply go online to that website, or if you need assistance, you can call our contact center. I'll put the number in the chat, but it is 1-800-743-5000. They'd be happy to run the rate analysis for you, and it will give you what your rate options are, as well as what the estimated annual price would be. So you can figure out what is the cheapest one for you and what's the rate plan that might work best for your household. Okay, now the next item I want to talk to you a bit about is contact information. We provide safety messages, your monthly billing statement as well, along with other important information that we want to make sure you are receiving it in the way you want to receive it. So we do have language preferences available that you can go online or call our contact center and make a change to your language preference. So if you want to receive your bills in Spanish, we have the ability to do that. If you want to receive them in Chinese, the same thing. We have multiple different languages that you may be able to elect in how you receive your information. So just throwing that out there so that you can take action if you would like to make a change there. And then we have programs that can help to potentially lower your bill. One of the programs that we have is CARE. Another one is FARA. These are both income-based programs. So if you go online to pge.com/CARE FARA, you can see if you're eligible to apply for those programs, and they will give you a monthly discount on your bill. If you need assistance with understanding if you're eligible or with signing up, you can give us a call as well. We'd be happy to walk through that with you and do an online enrollment over the phone for you, no problem. We also have a couple other programs to help reduce usage and help in turn lowering your bill. One of those is the Energy Savings Assistance Program. The great thing about this program is that you don't have to own your home. If you rent your home as well, you may be able to qualify for assistance in making your home more energy efficient. Some of the things that they can do for you is weather stripping, caulking, sometimes replacement of different fixtures that can help with lowering the usage and then in turn lowering your bill. And the website to apply for that is pge.com/ESA. Then we have a medical baseline program as well. If a customer has someone in their home that needs to use more energy, like gas or electricity, for a medical condition, then we're going to give them more usage at a lower rate, and then in turn, their bill would be lower. You can go online to apply for that as well. Currently, during the COVID-19 shelter-in-place situation, we are not requiring a medical doctor to sign off on this. The restrictions or requirements have been relaxed quite a bit during this time. I do anticipate that they will return back to requiring a doctor to sign off on the application. But for now, if there is a qualifying condition, there's no doctor signature required, and you can qualify for that program with the use of like sleep apnea machines, oxygen, maybe extra heating or cooling for medical conditions as well. And then what I want to leave with you all today is, one, even though we are going through a time of use transition currently, and it is helping our environment and ensuring that we have a reliable electric grid for the future, this is a statewide program that is being mandated by the California Public Utility Commission. You do have a choice in your rate options. So please don't leave here today thinking that you don't. You do have a choice. You can change your rate plan at any time, 2 times a year. And number 2, you do have information options as well. If you would like to receive your bill in different languages, you have the ability to do so. We want to make sure that we're getting information to you in the way that you want to receive it. So ensure that your information is up to date. And then we have a note of some available programs that may be able to help you in lowering your bill, as well as using less energy. So I'm available for any questions that you might have now at this time.
Thank you, Jessica. I will go ahead and share the last slide. Now we can move ahead into Q&A with Suds. We had some great questions. I know, Suds, you were being super helpful during the chats. And if anyone else would like to come forth and have some questions asked while Suds is still here, feel free. Let me pull up some of those questions from the chat. So I know early on we had a question from Hannah. How did you choose what unit to use in your home? There are lots of heat pump water heaters now available on the market, and it can be hard to figure out which is best.
Yeah, so my heat pump water heater is actually inside my conditioned space. It's kind of next to my office. So I did look at the noise levels, the decibels, and the ream is the quietest. So in part, I picked that, but I also picked it because I wanted one that was programmable. And the ream has a interface the um, to the internet. And in the future, it may be possible that the power company, you can set up an agreement with the power company. Well, they will pay you to take control of your water heater and turn it off when the grid is starting to melt, when we have these flex power alerts. And so I kind of wanted to be able to participate in a program like that. Particularly in the case of a water heater, it's not such a big problem because you already have a big tank of hot water sitting around. So whether they turn it on or off won't really affect me.
Great, thank you, Suds. That was very helpful. I'm reading another question from John right now. Oops. With a heat pump water heater, does the resistance heating kick in if one uses water too fast for the heat pump to keep up? What are the implications for the cost of operation? Is the resistance water heating what drives the 30 amp circuit?
Good question. Yes, it is the resistance water heating that drives the 30 amp circuit. And you can program it to tell it to never use resistance water heating, which is what I've done. Some people want that option. They might have big families and they are fairly often running out of hot water. So you can turn that on. It's programmable.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question is from Donald. Any backup for a heat pump water heater with a PSPS?
I'm not sure what APSPS is.
PSPS is
Oh,
for public
power
safety power shutdown.
Yeah, power safety power shutdown. Okay. Uh, there is so fundamentally a lot of the newer water heaters and furnaces, well, like let's say take your furnace in your house. In order to push the air around, you need an electric fan. So your furnace won't actually work in your home without electricity. So it's not a backup if you have a PSPS event. For the water heaters, there isn't any real good backup for that. If the electricity goes out, in my experience, the electricity in Santa Clara has never gone out for more than a few hours. I guess if the hot water went out for longer than that, I have a very strange backup, which is I can use my car to heat water using my induction stove, my little portable induction stove, and I could take a bucket bath with that if I needed to, or make tea or whatever I wanted to. But that's kind of an extreme case. Eventually, electric cars will just be able to provide electricity for your house, and then you could use those as a backup. I think those are ideal backups, but right now we don't have the vehicle to grid technology.
Okay, thank you for that information. Next question is from Rebecca. I think this will be tailored more towards PG&E's end. Why are PG&E's rates so expensive? The average US kilowatt hour rate is 12.9 cents. The cheapest off-peak PG&E time of use rate seems to be 21 cents in the winter.
Yeah, I can answer that question. The costs for rates are really the cost for energy and rates are neutral. What that means is that PG&E doesn't actually make money off of customers using energy. The way PG&E makes money is through maintaining lines, distribution of energy, but because we do have a large territory, we are required to service really anybody who wants to have service. We have areas that are very rural, and it costs a lot of money to service those areas. That cost is relayed back to customers. So literally what the customer is paying for energy is the cost as to what PG&E has to pay for in order to deliver it to the customer. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. It is definitely more expensive because of the rural areas, though.
And again, here is the contact information for Jessica and the phone number if you would need some further clarification regarding rates, etc. So let's move on to Bettina's question. You spoke about heat pump water heaters and also about cooling your indoor space, not heating it. Both of these functions cannot be done with the same water heater heat pump.
Actually, they are happening at the same time because Bettina, what's happening is you're taking the air from inside your house and you're cooling it. And when you cool that, that heat that's being taken out of there is being put into the water. And so the air in your house is being cooled, and that's being exits from the side of the heat pump water heater. So while I'm heating water, I'm actually cooling my house at the same time. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can use ducts, and you can just take outside air that you'll cool that air and you'll return the cold air back to the outside. What I have is I have these little valves, and I can decide whether I'm going to take that cold air and send it into my crawl space or whether I want to send it into my basement where my office is. So I kind of get free air conditioning in the summertime when I want it. And, you know, as a byproduct of heating my water.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Free AC. It gets so hot. But okay, thank you, Suds. Okay, next question is from Yaping. Is energy saving home assessments only for lower income family?
That's for Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica.
There are different resources available online that allow you the ability to do a home energy assessment. If you're referring to the ones that are where somebody would come out to your home and look at ways to make the home more energy efficient, that is in line with the Energy Savings Assistance Program that I was sharing earlier about. You can go online to pge.com/ESA. And yes, those are income qualified. They do also require a certain amount of time from the last time that you may have received help as well. So you can only get assistance from them every, I think it's 3 to 5 years, something closer to that.
Thank you, Jessica. Really quickly, Kirsten shared an amazing resource for backup installation, solar and storage. Peninsula Clean Energy can help San Mateo County residents at the link that she pinged us. I will go ahead and include that link when I email everybody this deck of slides. So I'll make sure to keep that information included within your bundle. We can move on to the next question from Katie. Can you combine a heat pump water heater with solar thermal?
I don't exactly know. I imagine that you have the tank. So if you're taking water and you're running it through the, if you're taking water and you're running it through your solar thermal and then you're getting hot water back, I don't know if the input water to the heat pump water heater can be too hot. There might be limits for how hot that water can be, but I'd have to check on that because sometimes your rooftop solar can generate very hot water, much hotter than what um, what uh, uh, um, what what you want in your tank. And the other thing about it is that usually rooftop solar, uh, in California, we kind of have a problem because we do get freezing temperatures. Most rooftop solar thermal runs on a glycol system, and it has a heat exchanger in a tank of its own. So most rooftop solar in California for hot water already has its own system. It has a glycol system with a double wall heat exchanger. I looked into it, they're very expensive. It's just not worth it to do. And to do rooftop solar as a backup, we lose power so infrequently, it just will never pay for itself. It would be better to install a Tesla Powerwall and use that to run your heat pump water heater, because then you can use that electricity for other backup reasons. I wouldn't do rooftop solar as a backup for when you lose power.
And as we are finishing out with this workshop, Carlos from Peninsula Clean Energy will like to speak about really quickly, just really briefly, about the heat pump water heater program. And Carlos, if you would like to educate the audience about that, we would love to welcome you right now.
Yeah, hi. Well, hi, Brianna. Thanks for letting me take a quick second. So we're Peninsula Clean Energy. PG&E is the electricity delivery. We do the generation for San Mateo County. So just real quick, we have specific heat pump water heater rebates for San Mateo County residents. That's up to $2,500 if you're replacing a methane gas water heater. And we're also, we've already touched on Bayren today, but we're partnering with Bayren's list of contractors that can all be found on our website for how you can access those rebates. And if you're on the discount care FARA rate, you can get an additional $1,000 on top of that. And we have additional incentives if you are upgrading your electrical panel. So yeah, that's all I wanted to mention. If you have any questions, just feel free to go to our website at peninsulacleanenergy.com, and I'll just drop a link right here. Thanks, Brianna.
Of course, thank you, Carlos. We appreciate that. Much welcomed. Okay, really quickly, because
Brianna, there was one question from Carol about whether PG&E customers would have PG&E rates as well. And PG&E, they are one of our great partners at PG&E, Peninsula Clean Energy, where Carlos is speaking from. And they do model after our rates, but as he stated, the generation portion is what Peninsula Clean Energy would charge you for, but it is the same rate structure, meaning they offer time of use rates the same as PG&E and the other rate options as well.
Great, thank you, Jessica. I'm sorry, that question must have slipped from me. Thank you for pointing that out. But we have reached time, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to tune in for our next workshops in the Green at Home series. The next one will be on April 6th, followed by May 11th. We will be covering solar rooftop in April and EV charging in May. I will be sending out the follow-up email. You can contact me at brianna.duarte@acterra.org. And we are sponsored by Peninsula Clean Energy. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.